This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I am Andrew Savage.
And I am Nancy Richards, and
We we've got a pep in our step today.
we do. We have had could be the wave that I have.
Yeah. Well, we had, I saw something that said, we're hope scrolling instead of doom scrolling for the first time in this whole year. And the reason why we are in such a buoyant mood is because the Democrats had a very big night last night, from sea to shining sea, from California to New
In
York
New York. Yeah. Yes, we
to
did.
Pennsylvania to Virginia, to New Jersey to Georgia. There were a lot of other races that I wasn't aware of, that besides all the big ones that where Democrats were successful. And I think that the I think that the first one, obviously, Zohran Mamdani is now the mayor-elect of New York City. We knew that was coming. And uh, Abigail Spanberger beat Winsome Earl Sears convincingly, which was not a surprise either. And Mikey Sherrill also beat Jack Ciattarelli, or
Yeah, Chuck
yeah,
Sidwell. Yeah,
yeah,
Shirley.
yeah, I forget his name, but I forgot his name already. But yeah, she beat him pretty convincingly by about 13 points, 15 points last time I looked. And
So, yeah,
those
go ahead. And
those were big races. California's Prop 50, which gives the Democrats five more seats in California, that also passed convincingly. Um,
we
and
also have, I have a list here. Jay Jones won the Virginia Attorney General.
that was
Michelle
really
Wu.
that was
Uh,
surprising.
yeah, well, hey, Michelle Wu was Boston mayor. Andre Dickens, the Atlantic mayor, Aftab Purval for the Cincinnati mayor. The PA Supreme Court justices were maintained. The main ballot initiatives. Mary Sheffield has been elected as the next mayor of Detroit, becoming the first woman ever to lead in Detroit. So that was a list that I got, which of Blue Wave.
And there were other ones too. I have some here. So, in the upstate New York, in Onondaga County, which is Syracuse, the Democrats flipped the city council there for the first time in a long time. The Democrats broke the Republican supermajority in the Mississippi State Senate.
There
Uh,
you go.
for the,
Woohoo.
and for the first time since 2006, Democrats won a non-federal statewide race in Georgia, winning both public service commissioner races. So both Democrats won those roles down in Georgia. And the Democrats overperformed, and they won 64 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates, which I'm sure will be very important to Abigail Spanberger when she becomes governor, and to Virginia's redistricting effort, which they want to take on to give the Democrats three or four more seats to combat Republican redistricting. And so, big night overall for the Democrats. What I am most happy about is I will never have to fucking see or hear from Andrew Cuomo ever again.
No, actually, in the Mondani speech, he mentioned as he goes
Mhm.
into private service, which is, what he's going to do now. He should go retire and get paid as a high consultant somewhere. But
Go back to being Bibi Netanyahu's lawyer.
yes, he could go do that. I will give him this credit before as he walks out. During his concession speech, his supporters were less than gracious when he was, congratulating Mondami, and they were booing and kind of causing a bit of a negative tone. And Cuomo was like, no, 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 that's not who we are. Which kind of
That's
you gotta
exactly
worry the campaign, but
that's
he did
exactly
tell
who he
people
is.
that I give him credit in that. He said, no, that's the person who won, and we need to accept that. So
Yeah.
I'll give him that as he leaves.
Yeah. And well, I was really most concerned. I was really most concerned, I would say, of the big races. I was most concerned about New Jersey. I had spent a lot of time there over the last few years. My parents had a house at the Poconos, so I would often have to drive through northern Jersey to get there. And over the last few years, it's gotten more and more Trumpy in that part of New Jersey. And even in when I was, South Jersey, it was always kind of Trumpy. But even earlier this year, I went down there for a few days and I saw a lot of Trump boats and signs and flags. And Kamala Harris only won the state by 6 points last year. The same guy who was the GOP nominee this time came within, a heartbeat away last time, basically. It was only maybe a point or two margin. Very close race back in 2021. And so there were a lot of things to kind of be a little bit nervous about as it related to New Jersey, just in terms of my own observations and just the way that it's trended over the past few years. But I was really relieved to see that Mikey Sherrill won, and where we see the biggest flip in New Jersey is Passaic County. And I used to drive through Passaic County to go to the Poconos, and that was a very Trumpy place. And Trump flipped it actually this time around in 2024. He flipped it. He beat Kamala Harris there by 4 points. And Mikey Sherrill won in that county, Passaic County, by 15. So
Well,
she
what is, you
she
know,
outperformed
I think
Harris a lot.
I think what this says is this is a message to Trump, how people are do not approve of what he's doing. And this whole aspect of him thinking that he has some sort of mandate and that, this is what the people want, has shown that he's absolutely wrong. This is not what the people want. A lot of people do not approve of his authoritarian style. And this was a clear message to Donald Trump that we do not approve. And so some seats were flipped, and people were, and also a record number of Democrats came out to vote as well. People that usually sat home, a lot of Democrats came out to vote this time. Um, and it also restored my faith in democracy, that we, can flip and we can move the needle um, when it needs to be if people get out and vote. So,
Well,
good for us.
yeah, well, I always, as far as the message to Trump goes, I think Trump and the MAGA movement and people around him, they want to create a sense that all of this is inevitable and there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. And so I think what last night showed is that it's not, that nothing is inevitable, and that it's really up to us. And I think as far as what this all means for the Democrats going forward and how they can harness all of this in going into next year's midterms, I think the message to the Democrats should be let the candidates be who they are, where they are. So I think it's a mistake to say, that Abigail Spamberger's or Mikey Sherrill's or Zohran Mamdani's even, that their approach is the approach that we should look to nationwide. I think different things work in different places, and let the candidates be themselves, who they are, where they are. And I think, I think it shows if you're the DNC, if you're one of the organizing forces behind the party, it does reinforce the idea of a Big Ten because you have Zoran Mandani, who describes himself as a democratic socialist over here, and then you have Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spamberger, who are pretty standard centrist Democrats on the other end, winning. And I think just having that Big Tent helps us.
Well, in regards to who we are as Democrats, I'm actually happy that finally the centrist kind of in New York, didn't win, and the progressives finally had a say and and a seat at the table. I'm a part of the progressive wing, though I'm not officially a member of DSA. I feel my politics line more with, because I'm not officially a member of any club, but I'm glad to see that they're finally, the people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, Mandami, do have a seat at the table. Um, I think we need to stop making socialism the word a scary thing. I am just surprised at how many union people are so like, oh my God, he's a socialist. I'm like, do you even know what kind of job you had? Why would you not want someone who is pro-union as your mayor? Like, who's going to fight for your contracts? Like, why would you not want someone, they're like, oh, our pension system. What are you talking about? This man understands the fact that, the idea of having a pension system and making life better for the working class of this city. Like I'm just like, do you even know? And I wonder, like, as a teacher, like that the fact that how many people do not understand what socialism means and what socialism has brought to New York City and this country, you know,
Well, I think not only is it
the
a mis
policy.
yeah, well, I think not only is it a miss well, not a miss, but a deliberate um, obfuscation and kind of fear mongering around the term socialism. But I also think just the way I think Mamdani has himself, AOC too, I think they've both kind of tack center in a lot of ways. And so especially since Mamdani won the nomination, he's definitely tack center in a lot of
Of
ways.
course he has, because
Yeah,
he's running for mayor.
yeah.
If people keep throwing down things he did years ago, it's because years ago he was an activist, you know? If when you're an activist, you kind of, your politics are a little bit more radical. But then if you start to run for elected offices, and you're going to win if you're just going to run. But if you're running to win, you have to be you bring your politics with you, but you also have to work with other people at the table. And I think Mandami's he's definitely going to do that. And I
Well,
think he
yeah.
definitely understands the job.
Well, yeah, well, I think, I think the surest sign, my only concern, I voted for Mamdani. I ranked him first in the primary. I voted for him this time, obviously. But my only concern about Mamdani was that he would listen to the more progressive types as it relates to criminal justice and policing, which I think, Democrats have dropped the ball on in a lot of ways. But what I am encouraged by, and I don't know if she's accepted yet because she's kind of demurred when she's asked, but Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner, he's going to ask her to stay on. I don't know if she's going to say yes or not every time she's asked. I don't know about now, but during the campaign when she was asked, she would just go to the line about, I shouldn't be commenting on electoral politics. But I think I have reason to believe that she probably will stay on, and she does not have a defund the police mindset. She does not have this sort of reformist agenda as far as criminal justice and and policing is concerned. So I feel good about the fact that she'll probably be staying on. Lena Khan is also the transition coordinator for Mamdani. So
Yeah,
Lena
let's talk about her for a minute. Yeah,
Lena Khan was my favorite member of the Biden administration. I thought her focus and on affordability, which was Mamdani's central message.
right.
I think Lena Khan is somebody who actually tackled the issues that made things expensive as the Federal Trade Commissioner. So she prevented a lot of corporate mergers, which would have made things even more expensive. And she went after monopolistic businesses, and she was constantly a thorn in the side of tech companies because she called them out. People like companies like Google, she was always calling them out on their monopolistic business practices, which make things more expensive for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's a free market idea is you don't want to have concentrated wealth in the hands of a few companies or a few rich people. That's crony capitalism. That's monopolies. That's the Gilded Age. And so you want a free market where everybody can compete. And she has made clear over and over again she is for a free market, but she is for a regulated, fair market. And I think I'm really excited that he brought her onto the transition team. I don't know, she's teaching, I think, now at Columbia as her full-time job since she left the administration, but I'm hoping that she does have some role in the administration, or that she, if there's a primary challenger to Chuck Schumer, I hope it's Lena Khan.
Oh, okay. You wouldn't think
Yeah.
it'd be AOC.
I think AOC wants to aim higher. I think she wants to run for president. But I think if there is a challenger, I think Lena Khan would be an excellent challenger to Chuck Schumer.
The only problem with that is I don't think people know her as well as other like someone like AOC.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get to very disappointed in Chuck Schumer, and I think he's definitely hit the nail in his coffin um, for his behavior during this election, not supporting Mandami, and not that he's not supporting it, but he's being very vague at who he actually did support and not making a commitment to endorsing him. I don't know who he's protecting. Um, I know who he's protecting. He's protecting he thinks himself by not,
I
but I
don't
think
know.
that really hurt him. I think it hurt him
Well, I
as far
think
as the
well,
Democrats.
I think Schumer is, has been damaged goods since March when he voted for the CR
Excuse
and
me.
expected nothing in return. And so he's been damaged goods since then. But I think what his motives were, I don't know for sure, but I think one, I think it's has to do with, he's a Jewish man, so it has to do with his connection to Israel. I also think it has to do with he does not want, they're doing this anyway. There was an internal Republican Senate memo that was leaked today. I heard on the Bulwark podcast that says we're going to link every Democrat we're running against to Zohran Mamdani and make him like the boogeyman, the way that they've done to other Democrats like Nancy Pelosi over the years. And so they're just going to throw his face in every ad. And so I think that that was maybe an effort to protect swingier states to get in the hopes of getting the Senate back, like North Carolina, where Roy Cooper is running, and Maine, which they actually have a chance to pick up depending on who wins that primary. And
Well,
so,
how about actually having, healthcare policies that you claim, I haven't heard one Republican talk about their plan for healthcare, what they intend to do, because they don't have one. And the reason why they're losing is not because who they're throwing up as a boogeyman, is because they haven't done anything. They haven't been back to work.
no,
They
they've
haven't.
given themselves a paid vacation.
And that's the other thing too, is, the first people who should not be getting paid is Congress. I don't, I, that really bothers me that they get a paycheck, but that the federal government employees don't. And that's appalling.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I think that there's some discussion today online about what the Democrats should do as it relates to the shutdown with all of these victories. And I think the one thing that they need to do is they need to dig in even harder. They need to dig in even more. Don't just say, well, we won a few races, and so now, it's time to end this. Actually, I've heard that's one thing that the Senate Republican memo said, was that they're going to link everybody to Mamdani that they're running against. He's the boogeyman. But also, number two, that Trump has been putting more pressure on them to end the shutdown one way or another. He wants them to nuke the filibuster. I don't think
Yeah,
even
I've heard that.
yeah, I don't think that they are going to, I don't think even that's a demand I don't think even they'll abide,
Well,
because
you know,
that's just such an institution, and there's always the risk that Democrats sweep everything, and then, if there's no filibuster, there's nothing to stop us.
yeah, because the filibuster is great when you're in power, but when you're not, so they have to see what they want. I mean, be careful what they wish for, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Um, but Republicans have not come, I wouldn't say nobody, both Democrats and Republicans have not negotiated at all. And according to Republicans, they're like, "Oh, we'll negotiate if you open the government," and that's just a
That's not
like
well. Then we lose any and all leverage. What's who?
what a
And
trap.
it's a trap in because they're always so well known for keeping their word on stuff. So we're we're just gonna trust them to to say, oh yeah, we'll talk about it when the government opens.
Yeah, no, you
No,
won't.
no, let's not do that. And the Democrats have no actual incentive to come to the table at this point unless they summon them.
Well, they
Unless
do have
they
incentive. They have people who are out of work and food stamps and people who are not getting SNAP benefits.
Well,
So
those are the human
they do have
incentives, but
incentive.
I'm just like politically, even before last night's wins, we had polling consistently saying that Trump and the Republicans were viewed as largely to blame for the shutdown.
Yeah.
And if they let this go on, the Republicans have, especially after last night, they have they are more incentivized to come to the table and negotiate, not
Yeah,
the
because
Democrats.
this election definitely showed that the voters are seeing them as the one to blame.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what that came about with that. Um, and this is why elections matter, because they really do show what the country is thinking. And look, a lot of the country is not happy with what the Republicans are doing.
Well, and I think the optics, if it's a message about affordability, which, people as moderate as Spamberger and Sherrill and people as more progressive as Mamdani, they all focused on affordability in their own way. If the focus is affordability, I think in addition to policies and ideas, I think we need to shine a light on the optics of what it looks like to have people losing SNAP benefits, losing health care, while they have a Great Gatsby themed party at Mar-a-Lago.
That's just gross. But that is gross, and the fact that they do that in public and just have that gross display, um, I I think it's disgusting. I don't think it upsets. I think some people really don't care about that. And I think what people care about is the fact that things are not getting better for them. And maybe having seeing that party might piss people off. But the fact is that the government is shut down and people aren't getting their benefits or getting paid. I mean, I just flew home from Ireland, and there are people working that made sure that my plane landed and
Mhm.
that TSA people went through TSA, and um, they're not getting paid. They're not getting paid to go to work. And, going to work costs money.
Yeah.
You got to put gas in your car, you got to pay for a Metro card. And if you don't have money, so, um, but Congress is. And so I think after this election, I hope that the Republicans are like, all right, look, people are not happy. We need to work with the Democrats here and negotiate some terms so we can open this government. That's all I want to happen.
Yeah, that's well, I would like that to happen too. And I think as November goes on, they have even more incentive because you brought up the travel, the TSA and air traffic controllers. That's going to be Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks. And so I
And that's
think,
the busiest travel year.
yeah, and so uh I think if all of those things come grinding to a halt, or if things don't, if aren't as smooth because people aren't getting paid or they're not showing up, then that really causes a lot of issues. And so I think, the Democrats, I'd never put it past the leadership of the Democratic Party, especially Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. But I think they were actually quite strategic here in focusing on healthcare and the subsidies. And that, I think, adds to the larger message about affordability, cost of living. And it's an easy issue to frame the debate around, which is why I think the Republicans are losing. And just because also the Republicans are in the majority, so people, and they have the White House, so people are sort of like, well, you own this. Whatever Senate rules exist or don't, you own this. And so I think Trump is starting to realize that too. I don't think he would be begging for the filibuster to be ended if he wasn't. And he even admitted in response to last night's election victories, he said, well, we lost because of the shutdown, so implicitly admitting it's their fault, they own it, and because he wasn't on the ballot, which actually I think, there's some merit to because, whenever he's not on the ballot, they tend to suck wind.
Yeah, yes, definitely. So, but he was to me on the ballot because his party was on the ballot, and people are they don't want to give him a mandate. And I think that is the message. You do not have a mandate, Donald Trump. You might be elected in power, but you do not have a mandate. And so I thought that was a good message. Do you want to talk about the local elections?
Oh yeah, well we
I, I'm sad because there are some very good people last night that did not get elected, um, that I thought um, were superb leaders and would have been very good for Staten Island.
absolutely. Well, I would say, Mike Colombo certainly is among those
Yeah,
categories.
that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah, me,
And Cliff Hagan.
yeah. And so they've both been on the podcast, and Cliff Hagan was certainly a tremendous candidate. And, you know, I would say also as a bright spot for local elections, we did get a district court judgeship with Matthew Santomoro. He won pretty convincingly. The last time I looked, it was by a 7 or 8 margin. They're still counting, so I don't know what the final count is, but it was pretty convincing. He won. Um, and we
Hanks,
Camila Hanks, she won re-election.
he
So
won re-election. And as far as Democrat is concerned,
yeah, and we so basically all the incumbents won re-election. And
well, yeah, the Republican David Carr won,
yeah,
Morano won, which I don't necessarily call him the incumbent because he kind of just won that special election. Um, but I do not like Frank Morano. I think he's just going to be, he's a
well,
talk show host.
it's actually, it's interesting because uh, there's kind of a GOP civil war in Staten Island between Morano and Fasella because Fasella thinks that he and his family are entitled to any and all p positions of power here in Staten Island. That, his son, who looks like he's about 12 years old, ran for the same council seat that Frank Morano now has.
Right.
And so there's some tension there, and uh, and it was quite interesting. There was Frank Morano did a live on Instagram or Facebook or something, and he complimented Mike Colombo as a candidate, the fact that he was working really hard, and that everywhere he went, he saw Mike Colombo, even though it was places that typically you don't expect a Democrat to be, like on the South Shore. And Vito got he got all butthurt over that. And so there was some very public back and forth about that, which was interesting.
Well, Morano probably said that
Oh, he wanted to
because
needle.
of Vito.
He wanted to needle
Yeah.
Vito, yes. And so it was, and I also heard that uh, there was some consternation among Republicans about Vito's dismissal of certain community board members last year, and that which included Cliff Hagan, and
Right.
or earlier this year, I should say. And so even the Republicans were upset about that. And so I think that, he is not really, even though he won re-election, he's not really making many friends amongst his party, and so we'll see how that goes. Um,
Well, Colombo got 31.6% of the vote
Yeah,
for Staten Island.
yeah, he got about 32%. Um, then uh, the ballot proposals. They all passed but one, and that was the one where the question was,
The election.
do we want to move citywide elections like we just had yesterday, 2 presidential years? Overwhelmingly, people voted no, and
Yeah.
but everything else did pass, and that was to make the affordable housing process more quick and to make it
We
faster.
supported, we were against it here on staff, even
Yeah,
Democrats and
I was
Republicans.
too. I voted
I
no.
was, I
Yeah,
voted no,
yeah.
so I was no down the line.
Yeah, I voted no just because, not that we don't want to see more affordable housing or that we don't want it to happen quicker. I just did not want to, it would basically flow more power to the mayor. And even though we happen to support this incoming mayor, uh, I don't believe, I want the local community to have as much input as possible. Now, not so much that it delays things and that we don't have any housing at all the way that it's
Right,
gone.
because people
Yeah.
don't tend to think of Staten Island when they're developing. They
Yeah.
kind of take that model, like what it's like in other parts of New York City. Um, we are, as far as a commuter, we have a lot more cars on Staten Island. The one thing I like about us is we don't really have we don't have alternate side. But what I am starting to notice is there's a lot of streets now where they're taking parking away. Um, and but you put up more houses, but you don't provide more spaces for people to park. Um, and in regards to traffic, our infrastructure is just not built for certain developments in certain areas. And the community needs to have that input because it's just we're different than other boroughs. We don't have that subway infrastructure like others do. Even if you give us more buses, the buses have to travel on those streets.
Yeah. And so I think while I am for a more expedited process as far as housing being built is concerned, I do want community boards to have input. I do want city council members to have input. I don't want it to just be the mayor, deciding when and where on his own to put housing and without regard to the impact on the local communities. And so we'll see how that goes. I think that was kind of a lot of the progressives around the cities did support that. I know Brad Lander did a commercial in support of the ballot proposals. I know that other elected officials did who are on progressive council members and things like that. Zoran Mamdani didn't support them in the way that Brad Lander did, but he ended up saying he voted for most of the proposals. I voted for the only one I did vote for was the one to digitize city maps. I thought, okay, fine, that's okay. And what I found really interesting about the mayor's race is, Andrew Cuomo, who was basically the Republican candidate, got came out on top here in Staten Island. Zohran Mamdani was in second last time I looked. They're still counting,
Yes,
but
diverse. Here,
yeah,
I'll pull it up.
yeah, they're still
Um,
counting. But as far as I can tell, he came in second, and Curtis Lee, the actual Republican candidate, was in third.
I was surprised at the amount of people that uh, I was surprised with how less his votes were. I really thought he was going to get a lot more votes than I thought, and I blame Cuomo for that. And so when people were like looking at, this is one of the few times I would might agree with a lot of, like people like Scott. I thought he was the true candidate. I think I think if they put people put their support behind Sliwa, I think he would have had a better turnout. But a lot of people, you know, voted for Cuomo as an anti-Mondami.
Well,
And
Well, Donald Trump told them to essentially, and that's been the messaging even before Donald Trump said that, because Donald Trump only said that a few nights ago. But that's been the messaging on social media for weeks is that, well, we don't want Mamdani, so I know even if you have issues with Cuomo, you have to vote for him, and and so it was the right wing infrastructure that essentially turned Cuomo into the Republican candidate. Uh, and
Yeah.
so and so I think that uh, I think, I take my hat off to Curtis Sliwa because he did not back down. He did not let Donald Trump or Elon Musk or even his own bosses at 77 Radio ABC network.
Yeah,
Uh,
Cervantes.
yeah, so they even
Castanetti. What's his name? Castanetti?
oh Katsimatidis, yeah,
Catsimatidis.
that walrus Katsimatidis. He stood up actually during the middle of one of his shows and quit the station, Sliwa, because they were pressuring him right there to
I
drop out. And
I
I
don't
was like, good for
dislike
him.
Sliwa. I really don't. I mean, I, I don't dislike him. I just don't agree with a lot of his policies. But I thought he ran a good campaign. I thought he's, a pretty much a straight shooter. I certainly did not like some of the people who supported him, like Scott LeBedo and what he said about Mandami, like things like that. But I didn't necessarily hear that from Sliwa. I heard that from other people.
Well,
That
no,
negative, that 9/11 bullshit crap, Islamophobic crap. I didn't get that so much from him, but um,
well,
but I thought he ran a good campaign.
if I were Mamdani, I would reach out to Sliwa and see, if there's something that could be done. I don't know if Sliwa would be open to that because I think he still may want some future in right-wing media, and he may not want to give up his right-wing street cred. But I don't know. But I think if I were Mamdani, I would say, well, maybe come into the administration somehow. Maybe we could work on something, together because they both have, even though they're on different ends, they're kind of they're on the populist economic spectrum. And I think uh, that would be good. And they were the
I
two,
could see him as a good bridge to Staten Island and to some
yeah,
of the more conservative
yeah,
parts of the city. Even though Mandami did get a few more votes here on Staten Island, they were in pockets of areas that, whereas, you saw the reaction that, when Scott brought their brigade down and made a big, fuss that he not,
the
we don't
brigade,
want you here. Like, he still has to govern the
yeah,
whole city. And so I think I hope on the transition team, they'll have someone who will be for Staten Island, but also for parts of Staten Island that are more conservative.
yeah.
Um, so I'm hoping that will happen because, we are forgotten a lot. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe, and he's also a little old, Sliwa, but I don't know. But I would, if I were Mamdani, I would call him up. I think of the three candidates in the race, they were certainly the most authentic. I mean, Cuomo was, Cuomo. And so that's where it was. And I have to also say this because I'm really disappointed in our former Congressman, Max Rose. And I'll say why. Because on Sunday night, he was on a MSNBC The Weekend program,
Yeah,
and
is a lot.
he was sitting next to Lindsey Boylan. And Lindsey Boylan was the first woman back in 2021 to accuse Andrew Cuomo of sexual harassment. Uh, and she's been a very vocal supporter of Mamdani. She has also been very much, out in the media space, reminding people of who Andrew Cuomo is by, talking about her experiences, which are undoubtedly, difficult. Uh, and then Max Rose, who's sitting next to Lindsey Boylan, goes on and on about how Andrew Cuomo, should think about the positives of his legacy. And then he goes on to talk about, marriage equality and this and that. And I saw the look on Lindsey Boylan's face when he was saying that. It was so tone deaf. It was so,
Was
uh,
he also one of these Staten Island Democrats who were like,
I
don't
don't,
vote?
I didn't know.
I have to do not like the fact that there were some of the leadership on Staten Island who played this, I'm not going to support Mandami, and said some quite negative things about this race and backed Cuomo.
Well,
Um,
I don't know.
they showed their true colors as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Max Rose, I didn't know what his position on it was either
Neither
way.
did I. That's why I'm surprised to hear
Yeah.
this.
He was on I when I saw him on the weekend, I was shocked because, you know, you could support whoever, but he's sitting next to Lindsay Boyland, to a woman who, you know, has had her life upended by this fucking asshole, uh,
Yeah.
who's been not only sexually harassed, but also, you know, he's been trying to get these women's gynecological records and their therapy notes. He's just a sick creep who deserve to lose. And then there's Max Rose, you know, saying all these flowery things about him, which I thought was fucked up, considering who you're sitting next to.
Yeah.
I
We
mean,
Staten Island, we represented on the talk show circuit.
yeah,
We
we
had
did.
Nicole. She was on CNN on election night. And she was relatively quiet.
Well, because she was, I'm considering that panel. She was on the panel with Bill de Blasio, Rahm
I
Emanuel.
just thought I was like that was just a bit odd.
Well, they ran against each other in
Yeah.
2017, yeah, and so they were on the same panel. Rahm Emanuel was on also
Yeah.
that panel. I'm not sure there was another woman there. I'm not sure who she was. I think she was a reporter, so it was kind of a panel where she was outnumbered fairly, and so I think that's why she was, you know, a little bit more docile than usual.
She did say that she was proud of her vote in Congress um, to uh, to
Keep the
pass
government
the
open.
clean as they're calling it now, the clean bill, the clean CR. What the hell
Clean,
they're calling
oh,
it?
the continuing resolution, the
Yes.
clean CR, like it has chlamydia or something. I don't
Yes.
know.
So, yeah, well, you know what? That did not pass. You need to come back to work, Nicole. But, you know, we'll see you there at the office on Mondays, you know, with no Meliotakis Mondays. Um,
Yeah, well, well, if she's even there, I mean, she's probably at Fox News at that time. And I saw a clip on her social media that, you know, the things that she says, they're just too, like, I have to laugh at them sometimes because she always thinks she's like doing a thing, and she's really not. Like, they're like, she's like, you know, New York City needs to look out for Karl Marx loving so Donnie.
uh,
It was too funny. It's Karl Marx loving. And then,
it,
then she has this is actually quite serious. But this morning there was somebody found, I don't know where it was in the city, but somebody, a Jewish institution had a swastika painted on it. That's terrible.
yeah, I saw that.
But
No,
then
and as you can, you know, my Republican trolls on my Facebook page. Um, so, and then the other thing, I don't know if you see this a lot, but a lot of my comic friends are definitely very conservative and vocal, and they were like, "How do you like that now?" Like, you know, it's because of Mandami one, we're gonna have swastikas, and I'm like, nobody likes that. And I said, and if you actually listen to Mandami, you would see that he condemns it.
Well,
So,
unlike Nicole, whose associates were all just recently caught on a group text saying how much they love Hitler and gas chambers and they want to shoot their opponents and everything else. And so I said that to her. I pointed that out. I said, your friends were just caught on a group text talking about how much they love Hitler. Maybe sit this one out.
yeah, exactly.
Maybe
So,
maybe sit that one out.
um, you know, this is, you know, and I don't know who made those swastikas, you know, but they're a disgrace, and people have been using that symbol, and it's just disgusting. It's just disgusting. And in this day and age, we have people doing that. Sometimes it is it's real like anti-Semitic hating. Sometimes it's just it's like youth like you know, I remember once when we worked at art and design, um there was two students and they were, I don't know, talking with each other or sitting across from each other, and the other student put a swastika on her page. And you know, so they were brought down to you know, she obviously upset that the other friend, this is like a friend of hers. And when they
Hmm.
sat down, that kid had really no idea. of the history behind that. And he was doing it to be funny, and it, which was not funny at all. But like, so a lot of this, the way we throw things around and use, like, we have to really talk about, you know, history, and how that's inexcusable, and or how people are using that to cause rise in and division. Um, and sorry, that's, if that happened the day after Mandami got elected, that's not because of Mandami.
No, it's not. I don't, I don't know who would do that, and I think, uh, I don't know. I haven't checked if he has commented on it or not, but I have no doubt that he would condemn it. Again, unlike Nicole, who, as far as I can tell, has not condemned her friends for saying how much they love Hitler and gas chambers and killing their opponents and,
She
all
looks
kinds.
like she's not getting much sleep lately. She's got a lot of bags under her eyes, so maybe the
Well,
pressure is on.
maybe. Well, Elena, when she was on as my guest co-host a few weeks ago, she said, Elena said, well, I'm a good Catholic girl. I go for her conscience. I was like, you can't go for what doesn't exist.
It's an empty drawer, like
Yeah.
that famous
Yeah.
picture in
That's the one I
State.
post. I post that every now and then, yeah.
Yes. So, but I hope, uh, in regards to this election, I really hope that we see more of Mike Colombo. Um, I just really was impressed with his ideas and vision for Staten Island. It's unfortunate that we just automatically go with this incumbent, and the advance, some of their comments lately, I'm seriously thinking of ending my subscription. I've always had a paid subscription to SI Live because it's been my local paper since the day I was born, and I want to keep that going. I know a lot of people who are reporters there. They got their start. Um, but this last election, I'm really kind of disgusted with some of the commentary and the anti-Mandami stuff that's they've been posting. So I don't think I want to subscribe to them anymore.
Yeah, well, I think that it's basically, the way that they do it now is just, what's going to get them clicks and what's going to get them the most kind of rage baity stories. And so I think that's part of their calculation, as far as
And
that.
driving around, like, where's the best pizza, which I enjoy occasionally, but
Yeah, I do. I enjoy that too. I like those stories. But as far as the elections are concerned as well, I also take my hat off to Mike Colombo as well. Whenever it's a borough-wide race, it's a really difficult proposition for a Democrat these days to do that. And I'm really hoping we see more of him at some point. Maybe there'll be an office he runs for again, but I'm really hoping we see more of him. I'm hoping, Cliff Hagan maybe makes another try at some office, and he seems to really love the South Shore, despite their ruby
well,
red.
he's always been an active member on the South Shore. He's also a teacher.
Yeah.
I think he's probably coming up to retirement soon, but he's also a good school teacher. So I'm sure the kids might, be happy to have him back. But he does active, he does some great walks out there. Like night owl walks are pretty cool, and he's always been very strong advocate for the natural, the nat. Why am I having a loss of words? With the parks out on
So the
Staten Island, and
conservation efforts.
yeah, the conservation. Thank you. Um, so we'll definitely see more of, Cliff Hagan's always been there. Um, and I'm glad he ran, and he seriously ran, and it's a rough area to be a Democrat in the South Shore, but um, kudos to him for putting a brave face and showing that there are Democrats and out on the South Shore.
Yeah, well, actually, he's also has another role now. as he's also in the new county committee leadership on the Democratic Party in Staten Island. I'm just not sure what role he is, but I know he's within the executive committee, and so I'm happy about that. And so uh, I. I would also really like to have, so Charles, if you're listening, we would love to have you on because I
Yeah.
think,
Well, we'll reach out to him, you
yeah,
know.
we'll see because I love his digital strategy. I love how confrontational it is. Mike Tunesis, got all in a tizzy a few days ago over it because he got all in a tizzy over that video about the seawall.
Yeah.
And he called him a moron, and he said, "Oh, the moron would know that construction has started." And Charles actually went to the boardwalk, Assemblyman Fall, I should say.
And he
Charles.
did the interviews
Yes,
with
and he
people.
said, "Do you know who the Assemblyman is here?" And most of them said no. All of them, actually, whatever
Yeah.
was put out there, he said no. They all said no, and they said, "Oh, have you seen work getting done?" No.
Yeah, exactly. So what work are they talking about?
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I like that. Yeah, he's definitely putting a little bit more of a face about, and confronting, you know.
the
So,
Republicans. I know it's always been, even though they're different parties, for a long time, for as long as I could remember, there was always kind of a gentleman's agreement between the county leaders not to kind of bash each other and stuff. But I'm happy that Charles is throwing that rule book out the window. And
yeah,
I'm happy that he's, being more direct with them when the texts came out, the ones that Nicole Malliotakis, as far as I can tell, has still refused to condemn. Uh, they went right to the Republican headquarters, had a press conference with the texts all
right.
blown up on a thing. And so I would love to talk with him about it because I also think that that had a lot to do with Matthew Santomoro winning that judge position because he was running against woman Remy Smith, who had made some questionable judicial decisions that were the subject of some really targeted advertising online. And so I was really happy that that happened, and I want more of it. I want more of it. So I would love to have him on to talk about it.
Well, if you're listening, Charles Fall or anyone who works for him, reach out to us and then, we'll give his staff a call. And
Yeah.
it's funny because when my phone rings from Charles Fall, it always says Matt to tone. So there, and so I always think it's Matt calling me because I'm friends with Matt. So, and then I'm like, oh no, this is his office calling. So, but they have the same number still. So I could reach out. He's on my. I just have to call him.
Hi, Matt, really, Charles?
Yeah, I have to just make sure I call the which phone I'm calling, either home or the office. But yeah, let's definitely have him on. And so we had a good night, Democrats. And let's keep up the good work and keep up the pressure on Nicole. Staten Island Action is still keeping the pressure on Mondays. I believe there's something going on Tuesday. So check out the Staten Island Action Coalition page on Facebook to see the different actions.
I think
And
like I got a text today about something that is happening on Saturday, November 8th, from one this coming Saturday. So from
okay.
1 to 3 outside Nicole's office. It's a rally in support of Sarah, a recent Port Richmond High School graduate. An asylum seeker was arrested by ICE while working in a warehouse and is currently detained, awaiting a court appearance with unclear asylum status. Support her case by joining Staten Island Action to reach out to Republican Nicole Malliotakis, who has a close and personal connection with Trump. Not that she'll use it to actually do any good, but it's always good to put the pressure on.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
That's good to know. This
Mhm.
Saturday from
1 to 3.
1 to 3.
Yeah.
So, all right, definitely we will
I'll put it
um
in the show notes.
yeah, put it in the show notes. And what else forgot I was gonna say, but it'll come up eventually. So on that note, I just have to say, coming back from Ireland, once again, the people in Ireland are very concerned about what is happening in the United States. I this was interesting. I was getting a ride to the to the airport in an Uber, and one of the things that was interesting about the Uber, I was talking to the driver, was that a regular taxi are only the people who could use Uber. So like there's like several apps, like there's free now, Uber, and then you could just hail a taxi like you would on the street. And they're all, so when you call an Uber, it's not some guy with his own car. And he says because they're all vetted through the Garda, which is the police there.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought that was good. I thought that was a good way to keep the taxi drivers employed. But one of the things he said that he told me is that Uber, the corporation, doesn't pay corporate taxes in Ireland. And I knew that Ireland has been kind of this tax haven for a lot of American corporations. But what they have over there is something called a VAT tax, which is this tax that you and I, if we travel and we bring the right receipts back, we can kind of get refunded because we don't live there, so we don't benefit from those taxes. But Uber drivers have to pay that VAT tax, but the Uber corporation doesn't. And so
So that was definitely, they had some really good lobbyists there.
So, but here once again are American corporations who are going overseas and reaping the benefits and not paying their fair share. So when I hear people talk about corporations, here in New York and they're not paying their fair share of taxes. Um, and but but the working class man who's driving the car should bear the burden and not the corporation of Uber. And that's just wrong. And so when we think about Mondami, when he's talking about where is he getting his money um, to pay for a lot of the programs that he wants, I want people to think about the fact that the tax burden tends to normally fall on us and not corporations. So when we're all afraid of them leaving or doing this or doing that, they don't pay anyway. So they should pay their fair share.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I think just for our listeners, I think I've heard that a lot too about like, oh, how's he going to do a lot of this stuff? Now, the one thing that he can do Mamdani, when he becomes mayor, one thing that he can do rather expeditiously is he can freeze the rent, which is what he's been proposing. But the the catch is that it only applies to those rent stabilized apartments that are under the Rent Guidelines Board. The Rent Guidelines Board are the people who the mayor appoints, so he can
right.
appoint people who agree with his agenda, and they're going to freeze the rent. So he can do that rather expeditiously. I think the pitfall he's going to run into is the people who don't fall under those that Rent Guidelines Board.
Yeah, I
Who-
don't expect him to be able to get everything done, but I do expect him working for the right reasons. And once again, my friends who did not vote for him, who are union members, why would you not want someone who is going to look out for the best interests of unions
Well,
and the
I think,
working class?
I don't know the people you're talking about, but I kind of have a
I'm
feeling.
talking about like teachers who
No,
who
I know,
voted for,
but I mean, just
Cuomo
personally,
and Lula.
yeah, I don't know them, but I think I have a pretty good idea why. And so I have a pretty good idea why. But as far as what he can do, that's something he could do expeditiously through the rank guideline boards and his appointees to that. Everything else, or most other things, require the state legislature and the governor's approval. Now, I don't know what her position is since he won. I anticipated if it were a bigger victory, if it was like a 12 or 15 point victory, she might be, coaxed into passing some of his agenda because it would be a broader mandate. But I think that She hasn't seemed like she's going to move on increasing taxes. I think she'll give him in a very de Blasio style way when it came to pre-K. I think she'll give him part of his child care agenda. I think that's a thing that they
Well,
can.
I'm curious if he's gonna keep the chancellor
She,
on.
no, he's not gonna. I
I
think, like I said, I think the only person
He
he's
also said he was going to make some cuts, so I he might trim a little bit in the in s- down at Tweed maybe,
good,
which
good,
yeah, which is fine, in
good.
regards to that. But we'll see, as far as getting money for certain programs, and so we'll see in regards to how he's going to what he's going to do with the school system. Very curious about that. Who's going to be the new chancellor? Um,
I've heard a few names floated. I think two names that I've heard floated, probably a long shot because he's got a controversial history, is Jamal Bowman, the former
okay.
congressman. He was a former principal before he was a congressman.
Oh,
He's
that's
got a
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a controversial history, so I'm not sure that he'll be picking him. Another name I've heard that's probably more likely is Councilwoman Rita Joseph. She is the education chairwoman of the city council. That's a name I've heard as well.
Well, that's
Um,
the other thing they were talking. That's what I was like, oh, well, what was the thing I want to talk about is they're gonna like who's gonna be the new who's gonna be leading the city council,
Yeah,
under him.
actually, that brings me to Somos. Somos is a retreat that
Yes,
that a
they're all,
lot of
yeah.
that basically all the city council members, lobbyists, um, city members of the city agency, they all go to Somos every cycle after the election and they work this stuff out. And so the speaker's race is a very behind the scenes process. The speaker's race is not on the ballot for the general public to vote on, it's the council members who have to vote on that.
Right.
And there are a couple of names that I've heard floated out there. I don't know what, if any, role Mamdani wants to have in that process. I don't think he should. I don't think any mayor should. I think it's up to them. But uh, I would say definitely de Blasio had his thumb on the scale when he first got elected. He made it known that he wanted Melissa Mark Viverito as the Speaker of the City Council, and he got it. Um, and the two names I've heard are Crystal Hudson, councilwoman from Brooklyn,
Hmm.
and then Julie Menon. She is the councilwoman from the Upper East Side, Yorkville area. She was also the leader of the Department of Consumer Affairs under Bill de Blasio. And uh, I think if I had to say right now, I don't know how Somos is going to turn out. Turned into City and State magazine, they talk about Somos and what it is and why it's significant. It was originally a conference that was designed to show solidarity with Latino New Yorkers in Puerto Rico, but it's become a very politically important gathering, and not to mention fun because they all look like they have an amazing time.
Yeah, well, you go to Puerto Rico for,
I, I see them all
but
on
I
it.
actually, you know what? I like that. I like the fact that the council are going away after the election. And, you know, I don't have a problem with elected officials, getting a retreat and,
No, I don't
letting their
either.
hair down and
Yeah.
figuring stuff out. It doesn't always have to be so official. Um, and I'm assuming Hanks is going to be there as well.
Yes.
And
But
you know,
the two leading council speaker candidates were actually here on Staten Island a few weeks ago campaigning with her. And so Julie Menon was out on Forest Avenue, so it was Crystal Hudson. They did a joint appearance with her. And so they're clearly lobbying for her vote.
yeah, so we'll see. I hope she gets, she had a rough month, loss of her mom, and then, the loss of Paul Casale, which I'm sure this was bittersweet, her winning this election and they weren't there to celebrate with her. So, you know, I, you know, I'm thinking of Paul, so I'm sure
Yeah.
he,
I'm thinking of him too. Her speech yesterday. I watched her. I don't know if it was an acceptance speech, but she talked to her supporters in her office, and it seemed to be a very emotional speech for all the obvious reasons. And so I think that. we'll see how the council speaker race plays out, but she's definitely a vote that the candidates are seeking.
Yes, definitely. And then on a final note, I was looking at some of our friends who were at the Mandami party on social media,
Yeah,
and I was
Jazzy.
thinking, I'm going, damn, we missed an opportunity. We could have been there passing out our cards, like, listen to our
Well,
podcast. But you and I are just becoming these
we're old.
old fogies, and we got to
We're
sit on
old.
the couch with our bottle of wine and
Yeah.
watch.
Well,
I don't
we
want to go to Brooklyn, so.
well, you know what it is. Well, I knew somebody. My friend Kim also was there from Manhattan, Kim Muscaritolo, and she got a ticket. I don't know. She's a district leader in Manhattan Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was some connection there. But I somehow she got onto three different networks. She's there jugging a beer. So on Fox News, she's jugging a beer.
Well, it was a fun night. It's a
Yeah,
party. So
yeah.
I saw, well, I didn't see this as soon as you left, I was out asleep because I was on Irish time. And so
Me too.
I,
I
I
was.
didn't I didn't I didn't even listen to his acceptance speech. I waited for like 10 minutes. I'm like, I can't, I gotta go sleep. So I just watched it the next morning.
Yeah, I was, well, I think I fell asleep right in the middle, right when he said turn the volume up.
So
I was like, I'm turning the volume down. Like,
it was a good speech. It was a good
yeah.
acceptance speech. And let I was I'm on a little chat group with Stenell and Sharpies, and you know we have to help him with his transition, making sure that he's successful, and also the transition is, to also have Staten Island a part of this city.
Yes.
Um and That's important. There's a lot of stuff. I keep saying this all the time, but as far as housing is concerned, I really would love to see tax breaks for single, people with mother-daughter houses, people that have like an apartment rent. Um, helping. I think if he reaches out to people like that, people who are first-time home buyers, who are paycheck to paycheck homeowners, giving them some sort of incentive, I think he'll make a big headway. I really do.
Well, I think the best way that he could do that, that's within his power, is reducing property taxes or giving
Yeah,
or some
or
kind of
tax break.
incentive. Yeah,
Yeah, like
I don't know
giving
if he,
break.
yeah, I don't know if he can give like because that requires carve outs in the law, which is Albany and the state legislature. But I think that he is able to reduce property taxes directly, and I think that would be a help.
Definitely. So, all right, on that note,
This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
and I'm Nancy Richards. We'll see you soon.